Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Des Photomag podcast. I'm your host, Leo, as always, and I am joined today by Andres, Luis, and our new guest, Andrew Mcleish, who is the author of the new cover of the Des Photomag Top Best magazine. Congratulations, Andrew, and welcome. I hope you have a wonderful evening today. We'll have a lot of questions for you from the community and from us as well. Andres, you can also say hello. And Luis, first time you're on the podcast, so.
Yes, hello to everyone. Hello, Andrew. Hello, Leo. Hello, Andres.
Well,
Well,
thank you for being with us, Andrew.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for it's great to see the photo on the cover of the magazine. It looks great, so thank you.
It does. And we would like to take an opportunity to remind everyone that you can still get yourself a copy of the Q3 magazine with Andrew's cover, and also a Q2 edition with our last guest, Andreas Geisinger, which comes with a little print. You can see Luis is showing us. It's a very nice collectible piece. But without further ado, let's begin our interview. Andrew, why don't we start with a little introduction of yourself? Who are you? Where you come from? Where are you now? And how did you get here?
Thanks very much, Leo. Thank you. So Andrew Mcleish, British, originally British from the south of England. Used to live on the Isle of Wight, like the small island in the south of the UK. And after finishing my diploma, my degree in the UK, I moved to Paris. I've actually been in Paris now for longer than I ever lived in the UK. So I've actually been based in Paris for about 25 years, just over 24 years, think about it. So, yeah, and I was going to say about how I started taking pictures when I was at university, actually 25 years ago. I was actually doing a BA in illustration at the Cambridge School of Art. And while I was there, I had several part-time jobs to pay for the tuition fees and the rent and things. And one of the jobs I did, I was actually a cleaner in like a hostel it was like homeless and drug users were kind of in this hostel. So I would go 2 or 3 times a week to clean. And when I was there, I chatted to the residents, and they all had these fascinating stories. They all had, how they'd end up living in this place, and it was important that they were there because it was one way of getting back into society. They had an address, they could get a job, and then get a job, they could get their life back on track. So it was quite an important place. But I was just a cleaner anyway, so I was doing some cleaning there. And when I was there, I thought about doing a film or something, like a short film about telling the stories of the residents. And I spoke to the staff about the possibility of doing a short film because it's part of a university project. So I would borrow a video camera from the art school and do these little interviews and do short shots and stuff. And then one day when I went to work, something had happened. There was this strange atmosphere and it was quite chaotic. So I spoke to spoke to everyone, what's going on, why is it, what's happened? And it turned out that 2 of the residents weren't actually homeless at all. They were actually 2 police officers working undercover. And they were trying to work out if there were drugs on the premises, and they seemed that there was. So they arrested 2 of the key workers. And I've got to point out there's several sites, there's several hostels. I was at one of them, so this is actually a different one. So I found myself in the middle of this, kind of story that made the news. It was called the Cambridge 2. These two people that were put in prison for. So I thought I really need to tell this story, and it kind of felt like an important story to tell. I was right in the middle of it, obviously doing this job. So I started to film, like I said, and some people organised a demonstration in London to demand the freedom of the 2 social workers, the key workers who'd been in prison. So I reserved the camera, as I always did, and I went to pick it up. The demonstration was on a Saturday, and I went to pick it up on a Friday evening. And of course, when I got there, the person who was running the office said, "I'm really sorry that the film study students needed the cameras. So, and they have priority because you're just, you're an illustration student. So I had to let them take the video camera." And I was a bit like, what am I going to do? So, they've got this demonstration in London. I was going to get some images. It's part of my project. It's really important. And she just said, run to the darkroom before they lock up and see if you can't take a camera. So I kind of raced it down to this darkroom, and the technician at the time was actually locking up to go home and for the weekend. And I just sort of begged him to lend me a camera to take some. So I had some images, but I didn't know how to use it or anything. I had no idea. And he sort of said to me, "Did you do the module in the first year? Do you know how this works?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." Because I thought if I'd said no, I wouldn't have had anything. So he lent me this Nikon. It was an FM, like a fully manual camera with a 50mm lens. And I traveled down to London the following day, and I started to take pictures. And then the initial, it's quite difficult because you're trying to like place yourself to capture the shot, and but by the time we got to Trafalgar Square, and lots of people around, I was kind of much more comfortable, and I was kind of like going around, and I was going up on the lines, get the shot of the crowd, or I'd go through the crowd getting close-ups, and I was able to isolate moments to kind of tell the story of the demonstration, the march, and there were also speakers speaking about this case. And that was it. I think when I was there, I was taking these pictures, and I suddenly felt right. It felt like this is how I want to tell this story, rather than as a film. So I kind of completely dropped, the idea of doing a film at all, and I just started doing these pictures. And luckily, back at the university, I had a friend who was on the photography course, and he took a bit of time to show me how to do the prints. So then, after discovering, photography, I was completely fell in love with it. I then, got shown a darkroom how to print pictures. It was like kind of a double bonus, so I didn't spend all my time printing pictures and in the darkroom. So that was like, and like I said, I felt that all the pictures I'd taken could tell as much. They almost told more than the shots of the videos I was doing. Hearing the people speak, it wasn't the same as seeing like the scenes I could get with the picture, the camera, the kind of the textures, and because people's stories often written on their faces, you could see these stories. So that was it. I was completely, I just knew that I wanted to take photos from then on. And I think it was an important story to photograph at the time. And I knew that's all I wanted to do. And just finally, I don't want to talk too much about it, but about a year ago, I got a WhatsApp message from a friend of mine from university who actually came down to London on that day with me. And he said, "Oh, watch this, watch this link, you'll understand everything." So I watched the link, and it was actually a trailer for a film that came out in 2007. And it was initially based on a book, but the film, but I missed it because I moved abroad, and I think it was when, before smartphones came out, so there wasn't Twitter or anything at the time. And there's a film called Stuart: A Life Backwards, and it's got Benedict Cumberbatch and Tom Hardy, so two quite big actors are playing these two parts. And the story is about, it's based on a book that was written, and amazingly, the guy who wrote it is a guy called Alexander Masters, and he worked at the hostel where I was working as a cleaner. He was there as a fundraiser and a key worker. And he wrote this story about one of the residents, a guy called Stuart Shorter. And the whole book is about his life, and it starts off the end of his life, and it goes backwards, and it explains how he got to, how he ended up in this hostel, and the awful childhood he went through to kind of, to end up there. And the book was a success, and they made a film with these two actors. So I mean, it's quite important. But like I said, it was kind of a shock to find that there was not only a book but also a film about which it talks about that episode with the Cambridge 2 that I mentioned. And the two of them actually organised the fundraising and the committee to free the two social workers. So they actually organised the demonstration that I photographed, which is what got me into photography. So I sent Alexander, the guy who wrote the book, I sent a message earlier this year. Sort of saying, "Oh goodness, you organised a demonstration I photographed, and that's how I got into photography." So I dug out the films and scanned them, and I said, "Look, here's the shots I edited, my 2 rolls of films," and I sent them to him, and he replied a really lovely message. He said, "Oh wow, what a lovely story, and thanks for letting me know." And he was actually able to identify some of the people in the shots, that I'd taken. Oh, wow. So so quite like I said, and it was quite important that it wasn't photography, purely visual photography. It was kind of using photography as a means to tell the story, if that makes sense. And I like the fact that he wrote a book and he made a film. So it kind of, for me, and like I said, it got me into photography, and that's how I started taking pictures. And that's, so that was it. And luckily, that's a friend of mine. If he hadn't told me, I still might not even have known that there was this whole, there was this film about it. So,
sorry, Andres, we can't hear you. I can see you trying to talk, but
well, Andrew, can you say that this desire of yours to tell stories that brought you to journalism, and to do all these long collaborations with prestigious newspapers and magazines.
Yeah, I think that there's something very, I mean, photography is very personal. So, I mean, you choose what you're going to photograph, and you choose how to photograph it and things. So every project I kind of work on, or it's more personal. So I think if it ends up being photographed, published in a magazine or not, or just, if it just ends up being a project I was keen to work on, it kind of, and I think that particular project, that first one, was really, like I said, it was like, when I was there was like a click, and it felt this is the right way to tell this story, for me anyway, to tell the story. I don't think I could have written a short story about it, but I think, I was really keen to tell it through a series of still images and things. So, but none of the public, I mean, at the time I was at Historic University. Some of those pictures actually got published from the demonstration. And Alexander, who wrote the book, actually said to me, "Oh, it's a shame, I didn't know before, because I would have interviewed you for my research for the book." So yeah, but I don't know if I heard the question properly.
Yeah. Well, I guess the lucky ones, you mentioned you were lucky with that incident. But I have to say that we were lucky ones, because you could have ended in filmmaking and you became a photographer.
Thank you. That's very good. I think it's kind of, I don't like you saying luck too much, because I think that, people, you kind of make your own luck with anything. If you instigate a project and you go.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, I was saying that the lucky ones, we are the lucky ones, because you could have then end up making films, and instead you're making photos now. I have a question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question here. It's actually a question a little bit about this. It's from London, from Charlotte. It's about your fine art master's degree. And she's saying, "Hi, Andrew. Many of us in DAS, in the community, are self-taught photographers. You followed a more academic path with a master's degree in fine art photography. In your experience, how did formal education shape your vision, discipline, or methodology? And what essential aspects of that training could help photographers who never attended art school but want to grow artistically?" Very good question.
Very good question, actually. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, long, very.
Yeah, excellent question. When I was doing my BA, like I said, I had absolutely no interest in photography. It was a complete accident, like I said earlier. I think doing the MA, because I finished my BA, and I knew I was going to do, I wanted to just do photography. So I took a year out and moved to Paris. And that's why I did my MA in Paris, which was a 2-year course. I think the most important thing, which may sound, I think it's good being immersed in a visual. Okay, so that is an excellent question, Charlotte. Thank you very much. But there's a really good question. I did my BA in, like I said, in illustration, but I think when I did my MA, which was in fine art photography, it was a 2-year course. I think it is important, I think, to be immersed in personally, I liked being at the Les Beaux-Arts, which is a French art school, with some fantastic teachers and lecturers, and you have that, daily visual culture, kind of like with art history lessons. And so I do think that's important. However, the most important thing, I think, for doing an MA, I don't think it's, even though that is important, the most important thing is to have the time to develop your work. Because I did a 2-year course in fine art photography. I actually had access to a darkroom, and I didn't have anyone on my back saying, you have to do this, you have to do this. I was able to do my own projects and take the time to do them properly, and spend days on end printing pictures and then going out and taking pictures and coming back. And I think that was the most important thing, was actually having the time to develop your work and know, in good, great conditions. So it was really important. And I think that's like taking the time to, kind of was probably the most important thing. But obviously, like I said, fantastic having, guest lecturers coming in and telling about their work, and having access and to the library and all these different, resources. So yeah, I think it was important from that point of view, but most importantly, it was the fact of having the time, I think, to just knuckle down and you know, because I think people who are genuinely interested or were doing their projects to get on and develop their work, and those who aren't, they kind of, you know, drift off and do something else. But, you know, having the time, that was really important. So yeah, I'd recommend it if, you know, if you want to take the time. So definitely.
You know, that reminds me of an interview. I forget who it was giving the interview, but it was to Martin Parr. And when they asked him, no, it was quite recent actually, it was like last year, and they asked him, how do you become a photographer like that? Like, how do you become so good and so famous and so on? And he didn't say anything about technique or equipment. He just said you have to be obsessed.
Yeah, I
You
completely
have
agree. Yeah.
to put all the time that you have, whenever you have the time, into it. You have to be completely obsessed with it. And you know, that reminds me of it. You know, having the time is so underrated, but you know, people always ask me, do you do photography on the side? Is it a side hustle? Is that your job?
Yeah.
Is that a? But if you want to become a photographer, I don't think you can do that. You have to be obsessed with it. You have to do it and do it as much as you possibly can.
Absolutely, and also keep going. I mean, because also people,
Oh yeah,
you know, when I started, people were like, well, what do you want to do? Like wedding photography? And I was like, no, you know, I was like, you know, really upset. These are my projects, and people have their opinions, but you have to just, you know, just kind of keep going. And I think as David Lynch said recently, in an interview I read recently, sorry, but he said before he died, he said the difference between a professional screenwriter and an amateur screenwriter is that the professional screenwriter didn't give up. He just, you know, and I think that's really, really important, like you said, to take that time and keep, you know, stick at it, you know. But I think it's good to listen to other people and, you know, have their opinion about your work. And that obviously it's important to listen to, you know, look into other people's work.
right. That's
There's
what we
also,
do here.
You know, but trust your instincts as well about, you know, what you want to do and, you know, why you're doing it. And that's really important to, you know, trust yourself as well. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, people always say, you know, we have the motto of talent over ego, and people think talent is a gift that you receive from God, and it's actually a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. It's a lot of work, yeah.
It's a lot of work. It's just forgetting ego helps you develop the talent, I guess. That's why we came out with this.
No, I think I like that actually. I really liked it when I saw that on there. Yeah. So I think that's great. But it is a lot of work, and I saw recently actually a clip with a British photographer that I discovered on Instagram. I mean, there's a lot of photographers I know from, you know, exhibitions or books, but I'm quite recently, I kind of started looking at Instagram. I think it's a guy called Chris Harrison in the South, and he's based in Brighton. And his pictures are great, like on the coast, very colourful and graphic, and I really like his work. But he said that a magician said, look, I'm going to toss a coin, and I'm going to make it land 10 times in a row on heads, you know, heads or tails. So he said, you know, I'm going to do heads 10 times. And he did it, and everyone's like, wow, how'd you do that? But actually, he actually recorded it all day. It took him all day recording himself 10 times until he got it right. And Chris Harrison said that's like photography, is you go out and you can have like the most atrocious days with the worst light and get nothing that's any interest. And then one day it'll just get exactly you get the shot that that's what I was trying to get. But it would, it's been 3 days, so it's kind of, yeah, exactly. So it's a lot of work. Yeah, it's a lot of work. And it's also like, it's knowing when to photograph and what to photograph, but also what not to photograph and when not to take pictures. There's also time to think, okay.
Oh yeah.
And what photographs not to show, selecting the photos that you show. Most time that's the mystery of it. You don't show the bad pictures.
Exactly.
that is our curator talking. So yeah.
Because not all the pictures are good. Yeah. But sometimes people believe that you shoot and every shoot is a masterpiece. Impossible. It never was. It never will be.
But also, I think when you're taking pictures, and when I do portraits sometimes for clients, they can say, oh, have you not got a good one yet? But it's kind of like when you take your first shot, you think, oh, that's okay, but this angle's better. And then I like this space better. So you slowly build up to the, so all those other ones, they're important to take them, but they're completely disposable because this is the one picture you wanted. So, that's important to take a lot, but only show the ones you want to.
Back in the film days, I have a friend that used to say there are just 2 good pictures per film. Not more than that. 36 and 2 good. And sometimes there are lucky people that have a lot of them goods in a roll of film, but that's accepted.
Yes.
It's mostly work.
All right. So, Andres, you want to ask a question from the community?
Yeah, no, this is not from the community. This is a question from me. actually. Looking at your website, you have a really good website. People should visit it. At
Thank
the
you.
end, yeah, it's really good, especially because you see that you made a lot of work in different areas. But you mentioned portraits, and I see you have some very controversial people here in your portraits. You have Noam Chomsky
Mm.
and Salman Rushdie. Can you tell us the story behind only those two? Because they are quite important figures.
Actually, I've got to point out on the photography, one thing I wasn't expecting, I think, when I started, like I said, I was keen to use photography to tell stories that I thought were interesting. But I wasn't expecting photography to take you everywhere. Photography takes you all over the place, and it gets you in, meeting people that I would never have thought I would meet. And the funny thing is, you're legitimately there because you're there to take a photograph. If that makes sense, you're not there, as a supporter, a fan, or something. You're there because you've got to get a shot. And just this last week, for example, I was doing portraits for a client we're on the top floor of a skyscraper in Paris at La Défense. So I had this amazing view, and then the following day, so it's, from one day to the next, you can work on, the top floor of this guy, and the next day you could be in a basement of, So, sorry, to answer the question, I do a lot of official pictures often with some of the politicians or actors as I come to Paris, and I'll do photographs, the official photographs of their visit. So I could be following the Australian foreign minister or something. And again, like I said, the photography takes you everywhere. So we can go and see the French president, and do the official picture. And then the next he's meeting a business person like that. But also you get press, like calls, for, can you do a portrait of so-and-so? But with those two particular photographs, the Salman Rushdie one, he was actually in Paris. And he's such a difficult person to kind of meet and even access. Amazingly, I actually contacted, he was there, and I got in touch. So it wasn't actually commissioned. That was actually, I just happened to see that he was going to be at this launch,
Oh.
So I contacted him. So, can I take a picture? And they were like, oh yeah, okay. So I literally had, but I thought it was, I kind of like the idea of, like I said, photography getting me everywhere. Like you can photograph a billionaire one day, and you can work for a charity doing homeless, stuff the next. And I think, that really is quite unexpected. I wasn't expecting that. And with the Noam Chomsky picture, he was in Paris for a conference, and it was actually organized by Le Monde Diplomatique, which is like quite an intellectual newspaper that they had. And yeah, I was able to do a portrait. Again, those two shots were very quick. It was like literally had no time. It's like sometimes you can have a bit of time to set up the lighting or whatever. That was like, no, you've got a minute, like here it is, and that's it. So those two shots were sort of like that. So
Chomsky wasn't in studio.
No, he was actually about to give a talk. So I had to get a shot right at the beginning, and then they kind of kicked all the photographers out. So it was like, again, I had like, no, it wasn't, but they had like a blue background, I think, on that one. I quite liked it, actually, the blue background. Yeah.
Really good, really good. Okay.
And those portraits, most of them are official portraits, right?
You what, sorry?
They are official portraits, commissioned portraits.
Not the Salman Rushdie one. The Salman Rushdie one was I was in Paris.
I was questioning myself about that because it's completely different from the others.
Yes, yeah. So it was quite dark. It was very quick, but I kind of
it looks like more personal, I will say.
Yeah, and I'm shooting it. I think it was a 50 millimeters, like a 1.8 or something. So I'm really close. I'm really close to it, and yeah.
So, Andrew, I have a few questions for you, and I want to get a little bit deeper now. The first, I want to get it out of the way. Why Paris? Because you mentioned you started from London. We can hear that you're very British, but you live in Paris now, and you chose Paris to study your master's, if I recall correctly. Why is that?
When I was at university, when I finished my degree, like I said, I knew I wanted to do photography. But I also wanted to do a year. I wanted to live abroad for a year, and I've always been quite attracted to France and French culture. I think the first time I ever went abroad was to France. So it's kind of like, it felt very exotic, traveling to France when, you can go to Australia, but because it speaks the same language, it kind of felt more, I'm going further away by going somewhere which is actually very close. And like I said, I grew up on the Isle of Wight, so I'm kind of like close to the coast. So it's kind of like, I did a year abroad, like kind of an Erasmus program originally. And I had thought about possibly applying to do an MA in London, but because I was settled, I enjoyed my time in Paris. I ended up applying for the MA over here. So I actually did it here. But my wife's also French, so so we moved over together. So that was nice. But I decided to stay, and I've been here ever since. But it's also good. I think that there's also a nice heritage, like photography. Heritage in Paris. It's a very lively photographic city, and I think I've also managed to get clients, I think foreign clients in Paris, because of being an English-speaking photographer. That's kind of helped as well. So it kind of became a place. Yeah, it really does. Yeah, it really does. So that was nice, and it's nice. It's pleasant to work with British-speaking clients as well sometimes. So it's not but I have obviously French clients over here as well. So both. So that was.
It's very funny. The wife story is quite familiar here. I think you're the third person to to tell us about moving because of their wife. Obviously, it's not the only reason, but it is quite humorous. But yeah, thank you, and that is very interesting. And you've been in Paris for the better part of 25 years, you said?
Yeah, I think I finished my degree. So yeah, the story I was telling you earlier about the taking the pictures demonstration, it was actually the day before my 21st birthday, the day I took these pictures. And that was in 2000. So I moved here in 2001, in the summer of 2001, after finishing my BA. And like I said, it's kind of flown by, and so I've been here for 24 years. So now, like I said, I'm trying to think about doing a project about the fact that I've now lived, more of my life in France and in the UK, and kind of doing something about that. So that's like a current thing, but again, with other person taking the time to think about it.
Oh, we look forward to that, and
thank you.
Obviously you got to tell us about it when you do it. And that's another thing that I wanted to get into, because just by looking at your social media, it seems it's not difficult, but it is more difficult to get a perspective on what you do compared to a lot of other people, because you don't use your Instagram, and I think this goes well into our ethos of talent over ego. You don't seem like a very narcissistic photographer to me. You seem more a very real one, and you can take it as a compliment, but also as a question too, because why is that? How do you approach photography personally? Because I can tell that a lot of your best work, quote unquote, is not on your social media. It may be on your website, it may be on I don't know, you might have prints, or you might just send it to your clients, but it's not like on the front page, right? Which is Instagram usually for people. But you're quite unusual in that sense, and I personally really like that.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know how to. I think I'm actually quite shy, even though I'm kind of like chatting on about So I also thought, even when I send a picture, like when I started posting, I was like, is this picture any good? And is it going to get like any like? So I kind of. I think the other thing is I kind of. I started taking pictures 25 years ago, so I was taking film. I was shooting on film in black and white, and then digital photography came along. So I kind of switched to digital, and then you kind of got like, and all these different, and then the internet kind of came along, and suddenly went from trying to exist and get your work paid for to suddenly like finding it being used for free almost, online. And then you kind of have like stock images coming along, and so whereas before I could sell pictures for a decent rate, there was suddenly stock photography meant that suddenly the pictures were being picked up for like €1 or something. And then social media came along, and like suddenly everyone was posting, and so I've kind of like navigated my way through it all, but nothing's actually changed really, because I've still working on projects I think that I'm interested in, and then editing them afterwards in the same way that I would have done before. And I think the other thing was that when social media first came along, Facebook and stuff, I didn't find it particularly attractive. I didn't like, not just, I don't know, it was something I didn't like about it. It felt like a bit kind of like you said, kind of showy offy. I don't know, it felt a bit strange.
Yeah.
It took me a while to even to consider having an account, and a lot of my clients were saying, "Oh, you should be, on Instagram. You should be doing these things. So I kind of started doing it more for that. But actually, I'm kind of glad, it means I've met people like you, and I've discovered lots of great photography, and great publications, and it's got me in touch with a lot of people, and that's really nice. I think the other danger is, I think it's important to put your phone down, because I think it's very easy to kind of compare yourself to other people and other people's careers, and it doesn't really matter. I think if you're happy doing what you're doing, that's what you got to get on and do it. So that kind of always kind of put me off a bit, but it's quite a recent thing. So I do post recent stuff, and there's pictures I post that I probably would have just got lost otherwise. And other ones I kind of want to post. So I do have a lot of stuff I'd like to put up, and I will probably get around to. But you're kind of busy as well shooting. You're busy on a project, and when you're working on a project, it takes up all your time. You kind of like you get up early, and you kind of get to the shoot, to the light or whatever, and you finish late, and you back it up, and you have to edit it. So you're kind of like completely consumed by working on a project.
Oh yeah.
You have to put it aside anyway. So
well, that's a pretty good problem to have, if I say so myself. But yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think it is fantastic, because I think it makes you a more quote unquote real photographer in a sense.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
I think social media should stay a means to an end. And when it becomes an end in itself, it makes you lose, the photography itself becomes the means. And that's a problem, I think, because the point of art, and I think it was someone from the National Gallery of London, in London, who said art is whatever has no other purpose, right? When it's not art is not a means to something. It's just art is itself, and it's just what it is. And when it becomes a means to an end, then it's no longer really art. It's a tool, right? And people use their art as a tool to become big on Instagram. And I think it takes away from it. And I like the way you approach it. That's just a personal
Thank you. That's really kind. Thank you very much for that. But I really like what you said earlier about the tagline about talent over ego. I think that's actually really nice. Because I think when I remember I created my account. It's only been, I think, 3 or 4 years. I created my Instagram account, and I remember one of the first people to follow me was this guy. He had like 16,000 followers. And he started following me, so I kind of followed him back out of kind of politeness, and I looked at his pictures, and they weren't that great, but I thought, wow, he's got 16,000 followers, And about 5 minutes later, he unfollowed me because he was just trying to get people to follow him. And I thought,
that is very common. That happens all the time.
Oh my goodness,
it happens all the time. Yeah.
So I think the minute you kind of think, oh well, I'm just going to get on with it, and it's not really.
100%. As a professional photographer, and since many people on our community, they are amateurs or they shooting photographs, but not professionally. How do you balance your professional work with your personal projects if you are doing that? Because when I look at your portfolio, in many of them, I'm not able to distinguish what is professional and what is personal, especially the Iron Curtain project.
Oh, yeah, thank you. It's not all easy.
Both sides, because you all have those both sides, and sometimes are difficult. The last years I've been working sometimes professionally on photography, and every time I am very engaged on it professionally, I don't shoot my personal projects, and I'm not happy with that. So I think it's always difficult to balance those both sides.
It's extremely difficult, actually. That's very difficult. It's a really interesting point, actually. So thanks. I think whenever I work on a project or launch anything, you need to have several. First of all, you have to have the idea, and I think when you come back to it, you think, is it still a good idea? You have to take a little bit of time to think, is it still worth doing this project? And then you have to have the finance to kind of like pay for it. So you have to kind of find a sponsor or find someone who's interesting, or you have to, and then you have to take the time to do it. So you have to have all these elements, and if one of the elements isn't there, so you can be busy with, commission shoots. So you don't have the time to do your personal one, or you can have some time and think, actually, I haven't got any money to finance it. So you need to have all these elements reunited to do it. But a lot of the projects I kind of work on that I kind of launch myself, like the Iron Curtain project, was just, I just read somewhere that the former border between East and West Germany was now a cycle route. And I thought that would be great, just to cycle down it and take pictures, it'd be like a, great project. So I did it with a friend of mine who's actually German. So the two of us, we cycled across Germany for about 3 weeks, just taking photographs. And it's good because I think it's important to get out and do stuff, because I think if I did it again today, I'd do it completely differently. But it was still, a great project to work on. And at the end, we stopped at Berlin, and I did a picture at Checkpoint Charlie, which is on the Instagram account. And it was important. It was kind of an important part of the project. It's like, how is, it's part of the Iron Curtain, but how's it changed today? And you've got like tourists and stuff. And I got one shot. The light was just nice, and I was kind of trying to anticipate that something, was going to happen. And I got this picture. I don't know if you saw it in the series, with the pink Trabant kind of driving past. So it's like this famous Eastern European car driving past the checkpoint, but it's pink, so it wouldn't have been pink back in the day. And amazingly, it actually made a double-page spread in National Geographic. So it's kind of like, this was a personal project that I worked on myself, and I was glad that it kind of made it to this publication. So I was kind of absolutely chuffed. It kind of made it all very, worthwhile. But even for the experience, it was really worthwhile anyway. So it's kind of like, that's really important. But I agree, it's very difficult to kind of put things on pause and, take the time to especially long-term projects, because you can suddenly think, it's been 6 months and I haven't done anything on this, I haven't worked on that. So yeah, it's very difficult to juggle, the two. But some projects as well can actually be, like you said, most of the pictures actually have a backstory, there's a story behind them. So if you look down on my feed, there's one shot and it looks like it's just a sunrise on the beach. But actually, it was a commission for a museum in America, and they wanted me to take pictures for the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings in Normandy. So I did a series of pictures to commemorate the landings. So the actual picture, I contacted them to get some information, and it turned out that the soldiers landed on the beach I think it was at 6:24 in the morning, or something. I don't know the exact time, but so I made sure I was there at that exact moment, so that 80 years later, I had a shot, of what it looked like 80 years, where they came onto the beaches. But if you look at it quickly, it just looks like it's a sunrise on a beach. But it's actually at the exact moment when they put their feet, onto the ground to start, the landing. So it's kind of, people don't necessarily see that if you scroll quickly. But if you, most of the pictures have a story. That there's a reason why I'm taking a sunset or a sunrise. It's not like just a random picture. But so it's actually, like I said, it's actually the exact moment, like 80 years later. So.
Okay.
Well, talking about the Iron Project, I don't know what happened to people, because I have questions from all over, and for the first time we have questions in different languages here. So I don't know if you speak Spanish, but
no, sorry.
I have to read it in Spanish. I have to read it in Spanish. We will translate later, because this will make Javier happy. He's from Barcelona.
Okay.
And he's saying, hola, Andrew, me interesa mucho tu uso de la luz y las sombras para crear atmósferas emocionales. ¿Hay alguna fotografía de tus series en París o del proyecto Iron Curtain que te supusiera un reto especial en términos de luz y composición? ¿Cómo lo resolviste? This is about, I guess he's talking about the picture, the first picture that you have on your website about the Iron Curtain project, where you have the light coming in from a window. I guess it's it's a window, and it has a I don't know if that's a copy machine or something on.
Oh, it's a typewriter, I think.
Yeah, a typewriter. Yeah, and on top of it, 2 chairs.
Light.
Yeah, and he's talking about the light and the shadows in that picture. It creates an emotional atmosphere, obviously related to the subject, of course, of the Iron Curtain. He wants you to comment on that. Can you do that?
Yeah, like I was saying just now, I think that if I redid the project, because when I cycled along, I kind of stopped at a lot of places on the way that had there was like vestige of old parts that were still remaining, like old watchtowers, and that's where I mainly do my shots. But I think if I was to reshoot it, I would probably go and try and meet more people and chat to more people, because I think I'd be less landscape and more kind of people. But with that particular picture, it's actually a checkpoint. It was the main checkpoint along the border, and it'd been preserved, so you can actually visit it. So it's kind of like it's one of the so they the typewriter was the East German post where they kind of people would go through and then there's the portrait I think in the background of the portrait in the background. I think it's the East German prime minister or president I think at the time in the background. But yeah, I can see the picture. But actually, it's quite interesting about the light in pictures and stuff and how I was quite interested to see how people their certain style, have their own kind of, I call it handwriting, the way they shoot, it's their style and it's their kind of, I like the French word, regard, it's their kind of regard, their vision, how they shoot pictures. I think each person, each photographer has a very unique way of working and how they approach something and how they're going to take a picture, like this particular picture. And I think it's unique because obviously everyone's had very different upbringing, childhood, they've been to different places, and there'll be different visual references which have affected them or not. So they'll kind of, and I was actually thinking about this yesterday because this becomes very pretentious because the Brazilian photographer Sebastião Salgado, who unfortunately passed away about 6 months ago. There's a really interesting podcast in French. Unfortunately, I don't speak French, but and he said that when he first exhibited his work, he was in Paris and he put his pictures up. And he said this art teacher came in with his students, and then the art teacher said, all of these photographs, look, this photographer likes to work at contre-jour, like with a strong backlight. So everyone's, contre-jour, I think it's backlight in English. And he said he was standing there and he thought, what's that mean? I've never, what does it mean? So he kind of started thinking, why am I shooting this way? Why am I shooting like my pictures this way? And he said that when he was a child, he had quite fair skin because he had European parents and he was in Brazil. So he was constantly being told to sit under a tree with a hat on, so he's in the shade. So he said that all these people would come and speak to him and they'd have the strong like sunlight behind, but they'd be in the shade. So they'd come in, and he said that he kind of grew up seeing people so he kind of shot in exactly the same way.
Really?
And I thought it was great, actually. It's kind of got me thinking why I've got, these kind of textures of colors I do, and I'm not comparing myself in any way to his work. Because I grew up on the Isle of Wight and it's very close to the sea, and like the way the light reflects, I really notice the difference when I go back there or when I'm in Paris, which can be a lot, different. So that's, like I said, when I was there, it was quite interesting in Germany to come back to the point that the question from Xavier. So thanks for Xavier was, I think, the question. The light is, it's interesting when you travel as well. You kind of how you interpret the light in different places, and really close to the sea or not. And I think a lot of your background and how you see, you see things affects how you then interpret that with your pictures. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense to me, especially because we have a light. Here in Portugal, the light in Lisbon is completely different than the light in Porto.
Okay.
I guess Luis can say it. Lisbon is called the Light City, right?
Yes. City of Lights, yes.
Yeah.
Because of a film from Alan Tanner, the Swiss director, they had to make the film in Lisbon. And it's kind of a very cliche of the city because the city is not like that anymore. Never was. Probably never was. But, okay.
Okay, I have a question now from this is from Italy. I'm going to say it in Italian, even though I don't speak Italian.
I'll take care of it.
Yeah, you take care of it. Yeah. But I think it's nice to the people to read in their language. It's Federica from Rome. Ciao Andrea, nelle tue serie come Postcards from India, noto una grande delicatezza nel modo in cui catturi la vita quotidiana. Quando cerchi questi momenti spontanei, come riesci a rimanere invisibile e allo stesso tempo rispettoso verso le persone che fotografi? Leo, I need your help here.
All right. This is a typical question it's the dilemma of every candid photographer. Federica? Sorry. Federica. So she's asking how, specifically about the pictures you took in India. She says that they're very...
she says?
Yes. She says that they're very... careful and delicate with the way that you treat the people, and it looks like you're being very respectful and mindful of their privacy and what they're doing. Basically, she's asking, how do you approach it? Do you manage to hide yourself and be respectful, remain away from the scene, or well, I guess she's curious about how you approach people in this way. Do you become invisible? How do you make yourself invisible, or are you
Or do
overt? Do you make yourself visible to them?
Again, thank you. It's a lovely question, actually. A quick word about the project, because I think with my website, it's kind of feels a bit like a work in progress. I went to India for about a month earlier this year, so I have a ton of pictures that I haven't even had a chance to look at properly, because I just, I was literally, I wasn't looking at anything. I was literally just taking pictures. So I have a lot of stuff I'm going to upload, hopefully, when I get the chance. But thank you. Yeah, that's a lovely point. So thank you very much. I did go there actually with a project in mind. I had an idea for like a kind of a small project, like in the kind of, but then just before we left, just before like heading over, I suddenly thought, well, I run around all year. I just want to take it easy and kind of like just wander around and kind of, not plan it, kind of just go wherever my camera takes me, or wherever you happen to go. And a lot of the pictures there would often be just, where I ended up that particular day. But I do think that in photography, you have to observe and anticipate. I don't like running after things. If something's happening, I'm going to miss it, because I'm kind of you're always 2 steps behind. But if you kind of, keep an eye, you've got like an area you're kind of interested in, and you kind of keep an eye on what's going on, often something interesting will happen, because you kind of waited for that moment. So I think in the pictures that shot with the elephant coming down the road, again, I was in this car. I told the driver, I said, stop. This elephant just walked past. And I was able to like but I saw it quite a way away. I saw it like further down the street. So I just said, stop and I get it. But with the people, it's tough, because obviously when you're walking around with a camera, you're drawing attention to yourself. People kind of, but it kind of works both ways, because I think sometimes I keep it in a bag. I'm not necessarily walking, I keep it in a bag and I'll be walking around. And when you see something, you think, oh, okay, there's something here that's interesting. I'll get the camera out and I kind of wait for something, or, or even people come and chat to you and speak to you. So you can kind of, it's a way of chatting to people or interacting and stuff. But I do try and be discreet in the sense that I don't want to direct people. I don't want to say, do this, I want it to be kind of, so I think the minute you start directing it, it kind of becomes false. It kind of loses the kind of the, I don't want to say honesty, because it's very subjective. I'm shooting at that, honesty, but I don't want to direct. I'm not saying stand there, walk there, or anything. So I kind of but that's really nice. But I think like I said, I do. I mean, I'm not walking around with a camera on my my neck all the time and just shooting. I do think, okay, this is a good place. This is a nice light. This is an interesting setup, and that's when I start working. But I can walk around for a couple of hours without getting my camera out, and I have to be in a certain groove. Like I have to be like looking and thinking, and then take a break. And think, okay, I'm going to sit and take have a cup of coffee, and so kind of like it's kind of like deciding when you're going to get your camera out and take pictures, and when you think, okay, that's enough. So I'm not I'm not walking around 24/7 like shooting constantly. So.
That's good. Yeah, that reminds me of the usual metaphor of the fisherman and the hunter. Are you more of a hunter or a fisherman? You sound more like a fisherman. You're quite patient, and
I think I can go back to the place. Go back, right. And
you know where the fish are, and you go back there, and something comes.
Yeah.
It comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
But actually, you reposted one of my pictures recently, and I really liked it. There's a picture of a hovercraft. It's on the beach and it's getting everyone wet. I don't know if it's on your Instagram feed, because you reposted it. But anyway, the shot that I actually went there because I wanted to show my kids. There's this hovercraft that runs from the Isle of Wight to Portsmouth. It's the last commercial hovercraft in the world that runs. So you can get on it. And the funny thing is that people turn up to see it. Because they're curious to see this hovercraft kind of like leaving, but when it comes, it turns around to go, and everyone gets soaked because it turns, and the big propellers, they just spray everyone. But I wanted to show my kids, so I took them along to see it, and but the light was horrible, and I kind of didn't get a good shot. So I went back several times to get that, when the light was like a softer light and it was a nice color, and so actually it's not like, so that's not the first time. That was me going back several times in the same day, when the light was kind of right to get the shot with the the textures and the spray and stuff. So
yeah, I can tell you, living in Venice, I get that Absolutely. I continually see places that, I always think, oh, if there was someone there, if it was the right light, and I take a picture with my phone and I put a pin on the map and I come back
Yeah.
constantly every day, and until I get something.
No, it's good. It's like a notebook. You kind of like,
Yeah.
it's there. Excellent. Yeah, that's a great way to. That's definitely the way to go, I think.
Absolutely agreed. I think we've taken enough of your time, so we want to wrap it up with one last question, because it's got to be about your cover, because I've read a little bit of the story, and it is, I think it's worth sharing here as well, because it's one thing to read it, but I would like for you to have the opportunity to talk about it. So if you'd like to share the backstory and then the present as well of the cover of the next the Q3 2025 Top Best, because we're very fond of the picture, and I think it has a wonderful story behind it as well. So go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you very, very much. Thanks for, we were saying about personal work and mission work. This was actually my idea to take this picture. And it's very different. But ideas kind of come from, I'm not looking, going, oh, I'm going to find something to photograph. It kind of like something will crop up and I think, oh, that could be interesting. So I was actually reading an article in the paper about, it was a music thing. There's a guy as a journalist talking about a festival in Scandinavia or something.
It was at the Gospel Festival.
Yeah.
It was the Gospel Festival in Norway, I guess.
Yeah, I think it maybe was.
I saw it in the news by the time.
Okay, but I didn't know what he was talking about. And so I kind of looked it up online. And he just talked about this couple that had been taken to court because they'd done an indecent act on stage. I'm trying to be polite for the feed, but they'd done something. They came on stage in front of the whole this massive crowd, and they said, how far are you prepared to go to save the planet? And they set up this website doing pornography, whereby the proceeds of their pornography would then be sent to help save the rainforest. And I thought it was quite a novice. I mean, I'm not like too big on, like I said, nude photography. And you see, some photographers like to do like black and white with, news or something. It's not really something that I've ever kind of been interested in. But I heard their story and I thought, there's something to do. So I emailed them and said, would you be happy for me to come and do a small feature on your project or something? And they accepted, actually. They were okay. So I went to Berlin, so based in Berlin. And we actually I spent a couple of days. We did a couple of days with them, like they were giving out leaflets. But they had like when I was there, they weren't filming or anything. We just spent some time with them. But I really wanted to get like a nice portrait with them. I thought I've got to get something, but I didn't have an idea. I didn't have any real ideas. I had like some vague. I felt I had to get something to kind of tell that story. And it was actually the day before I left. I messaged them. I thought, I've got an idea. And I was walking along a bridge, and I thought, and I told them about it, and they really liked the idea, so we were able to make it work. But I wanted, obviously, again, I don't want to swear, but the website was called Fuck for Forest. So they were doing these films. So I wanted to have a forest element in it. So obviously the shot's taken it's in a park, actually, near where they live. But one thing that I think is really interesting is that, I said about you're influenced by your background and stuff. I'm also very influenced by album covers or posters or films. It's not just photographers, you see things. And I suddenly had this idea that I wanted to get them to pose like John Lennon and Yoko Ono, who for the cover of the album, they pose naked for this cover called Two Virgins. And on the back, they pose like with their backs holding hands. And I always like the shot is quite relaxed, and I like that. And I wanted to do like a parallel between, John Lennon and Yoko doing their bed, protecting for peace in bed, and then kind of doing this kind of eco-friendly pornography, kind of. So I asked them, I said, could we do that pose? And it had the kind of an Adam and Eve look to it. I kind of wanted that look as well. So we found this park that was literally like on their doorstep, and we went down, and I think Tommy and the guy, and it was actually kind of a bit, he was a bit tired. He couldn't really be bothered. But I asked him to, set it up, and I had a little flash on a camera on a little cable, and I only fired off like 7 shots. I think that many, but I could see that I had the one I wanted. So I was like, no, that's just that's what I wanted to do. But no, it was important to kind of get that, like I said, that look. I wanted that kind of like relaxed atmosphere that you get from relaxed. I didn't want to be too. I'm not trying to it wasn't to publicize what they're doing. It was kind of a way of talking about it, but kind of, I want to say with affection, kind of elegantly, not brash. It wasn't brash or anything. It wasn't supposed to be, So that was so I was pleased it came out. And like I said, I like the spot we're in because the greens in it. It's really important to have that kind of very deep forest green. It's not like a light woodland green. It's kind of a deep, and like a nice green. I think how green should be. So it's kind of nice. So I was really pleased with that. So it's fantastic to see. Like I said, see it come up. So thanks very much for the feature. It's lovely to see it there on the magazine. So thank you.
I do think it came out very elegant, and I did actually. The first thing that came to mind was that picture of Yoko. And
excellent! Thank you.
It's a beautiful picture because it's a kind of a paradox. If you know the story behind it, and then the image tells a completely different story, a story of innocence and simplicity, I will say. That's what I much love on this picture.
Thank you very, very much. So thank you. That's really kind. But like I said, it was me who kind of like I say, kind of when you think of an idea, you get an idea. You kind of is it worth chasing up? I thought no, it is worth going there. It is worth taking this shot. So kind of like I said, thank you for featuring it. It's great. It's great to see it on the cover.
When making something like this, it's very easy to get in, to make something quite lewd, quite great.
Yeah.
This is very tasteful, I think, and it does belong on a magazine cover. I think it is fantastic. I believe we've definitely taken enough of your time today, and I think we're all eager to go get some lunch. So, if this is all, Andres and Luis, you wanna?
Yeah, we have many questions, but we don't have that much time. Yeah, so I think we could really wrap this up, and I think we can move to ask you for your final words, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say thanks very much for inviting me on. Actually, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. And like you said, actually, it's kind of nice to find communities within social media where we're very lively and again, I'm coming back to the talent over ego. I do really like that. And I love checking out actually what you've kind of featured, and I think there's like a real style. I like the editorial look to the page. I want to come and visit what you've got. I like the fact that it's good to think about, how colors and contrast and stuff that it looks like, So thanks for that, and thank you. Keep in touch.
Okay.
And if you're ever in Paris, let me know. I'd love to go for a wander on the camera and have a cup of coffee.
I'll certainly take you up on that.
Yes, we can arrange that. Thank you very much.
All right, Andrew, we look forward to your next work. And as you mentioned, you have new projects coming up. So we encourage everyone to go look at your website, and we will leave a link in our stories. And since you don't use Instagram as much to publicize yourself, we will do it for you.
I'll try. Thank you.
Now, keep it up as you do. I think you're doing fantastic work, and we're all very happy to have you here. And we look forward to meeting you in person sometime, and we'll see. We'll chat some more, I think, in the future.
Thank you. And again, if the questions, happy to forward them on. I happily reply to any questions. So thanks, Andres, for that.
Will do. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.